It was supposed to be a night of celebration. As Tokyo prepared to welcome the year 2001, families across the city gathered for food, laughter, and traditions. In Setagaya, a quiet suburb on the western edge of the capital, the Miyazawa family had settled into their modest two-story home, preparing for the end of the millennium. But before dawn broke on New Year's Eve, their house would become the scene of one of the most shocking and baffling mass murders in Japanese history. To this day, the Setagaya family murders remain unsolved, a crime as haunting as it is inexplicable. The victims were Mikio Miyazawa, 44 years old, his wife Yasuko, 41, and their children, 8-year-old Nina and 6-year-old Rei. By all accounts, they were an ordinary family. Mikio worked at Interbrand, a British marketing company's Tokyo branch. Yasuko was a teacher, giving private lessons from home. Their daughter Nina was lively and social, while Rei, though shy, was beloved by relatives. They lived beside a large park undergoing redevelopment. It was a safe neighborhood, the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked and rarely feared crime. But on the night of December 30th, 2000, that illusion of safety was ripped away. The sequence of events began just before midnight. Investigators believe the killer gained entry by climbing a tree and entering through the bathroom window on the second floor. What followed was sheer brutality. 6-year-old Rei was the first to die, strangled in his sleep. Mikio, the father, encountered the intruder and fought desperately. Evidence of a violent struggle was found throughout his study, but Mikio was stabbed repeatedly with a sashimi knife, a long, sharp blade typically used for slicing fish. The knife broke during the attack, and chillingly, the killer simply retrieved another from the family's kitchen to continue his assault. The rampage continued upstairs. Yasuko and Nina were attacked next. Both mother and daughter suffered multiple stab wounds. The violence was frenzied, the injuries horrific. Yet the most unsettling detail came not from the murders themselves, but from what the killer did after. Rather than fleeing immediately, he lingered inside the Miyazawa home for hours. He ate food from their refrigerator, used their computer, and even left traces of his own blood from injuries sustained during the struggle. He changed clothes, used the bathroom, and left behind a bizarre trail of personal items, clothing, a sashimi knife, and even fecal matter in the toilet. By morning, relatives grew concerned when they could not reach the family. Yasuko's mother, who lived nearby, came to the house. When she entered, she discovered the bodies of her daughter and granddaughter upstairs. And soon after, the rest of the horror revealed itself. The police were called immediately. What they found was chaos, a crime scene both grotesque and bewildering. 4 innocent lives had been taken, but the home was littered with evidence, as if the killer had wanted to leave his mark. Japan is a nation known for its low crime rate. Violent murders, especially family annihilations, are rare. The brutality of the Setagaya case was enough to shock the entire country, but the strangeness of the killer's behavior elevated it to legend. Who would commit such carnage and then casually stay behind, raiding the fridge and browsing the family's computer? Investigators cataloged the items left behind: a gray Uniqlo sweater, a black hat, gloves, and a sashimi knife purchased not far from the crime scene. Even more bizarrely, DNA evidence was everywhere, from the killer's blood to his discarded clothing. And yet, despite such abundance, the case remains unsolved. The evidence painted an unusual picture. Forensic testing suggested the killer was male, of Asian descent, possibly mixed race with markers indicating origins in Southern Europe or Korea. His blood type was rare. Fibers from his clothing traced back to specific manufacturers. The sashimi knife had been purchased from a store in the local shopping district. Even sand found on his clothing was traced to an area near a U.S. military base in Japan. It was as though the killer had carried a trail of his life with him into the Miyazawa home. And still, none of it led to an arrest. The investigation was massive. Thousands of police officers worked the case. More than 12,000 pieces of evidence were collected. Over 35,000 people were questioned. And yet, the perpetrator slipped through their fingers. Every theory seemed to collapse under scrutiny. Was it a stranger who entered at random? A burglar gone wrong? Or did the family know their killer? Motive remained elusive. No valuables were stolen, no personal vendetta uncovered. The act seemed motiveless, a murder for the sake of murder, or perhaps something even stranger. The neighborhood around the Miyazawa home changed forever. The house was never demolished. It still stands today, abandoned, its windows covered, a silent monument to horror. Locals avoid the street. Children whisper about ghosts. The idea that a killer could slip into a home, destroy an entire family, then vanish without consequence has left scars on Japan's collective psyche. The police kept the case open, but with every year that passed, hope for resolution dimmed. Theories began to circulate. Some believed the killer was a transient, perhaps a homeless man who stumbled upon the house. But the precision of the attack and the fact that he carried a sashimi knife suggested preparation. Others thought he might have been a soldier or a foreign national, connected to the nearby American base. The peculiar sand grains in his clothing supported this. Another theory suggested the killer was someone with personal grievances against Mikio, perhaps tied to his work. But no clear evidence supported these ideas. The most chilling aspect of the case remains the killer's indifference. He did not simply kill and flee. He made himself at home. He consumed ice cream and melon. He used the family's computer to access websites after the murders. He even stayed long enough that his own blood, dripping from wounds sustained in the fight, stained the home. It was as if the line between murderer and resident blurred. This behavior baffled criminologists. Was it arrogance, madness, or did he know he would never be caught? Over the years, new forensic methods were applied. The killer's DNA was profiled, but no match ever emerged in Japan's databases. Attempts to connect the case to international records yielded nothing. The sheer amount of evidence contrasted cruelly with the lack of answers. Investigators described the case as a puzzle with too many pieces, but none that fit together. Families across Japan watched anxiously, horrified by the brutality, but also unsettled by the fact that such a dangerous man had never been found. The Setagaya murders became more than a crime. They became a cultural wound. Documentaries, books, and speculation filled the void left by the lack of closure. For some, the killer was a ghost-like figure, haunting the edges of society. For others, he was a man hiding in plain sight. The abandoned house became infamous, a symbol of unsolved horror. Every year, on the anniversary of the crime, vigils are held, but no new answers surface. As decades passed, the case remained cold, though never forgotten. Japanese law enforcement continues to hold on to the evidence, hoping that advances in technology might one day identify the killer. Yet, with every passing year, the likelihood that justice will be served grows dimmer. The Miyazawa family, who once lived ordinary lives in a quiet neighborhood, have become eternal symbols of a mystery that defies explanation. What makes the Setagaya case so haunting is not only the brutality, but the intimacy. The killer was inside their home for hours. He touched their belongings, ate their food, left his mark on their lives in ways both violent and mundane. He destroyed a family, then lingered in the ruins. This combination of savagery and casualness is what sets the case apart, making it one of the most unsettling, unsolved murders of the modern era. So, who was the Setagaya killer? Was he a soldier from abroad, carrying sand from distant places on his clothes, a neighbor with a hidden grudge, or a drifter who chose the Miyazawas by chance? We will likely never know. What remains is the enduring horror of a crime that defies reason. The house still stands, frozen in time, a silent witness to the night of December 30th, 2000. The Miyazawa's story reminds us how fragile the boundary between safety and terror can be. As we close this chapter, we remember Mikio, Yasuko, Nina, and Rei, a family whose lives were stolen on the eve of a new millennium. Their case stands as one of the darkest mysteries of Japan, unsolved, unsettling, unforgettable. Thank you for watching this deep dive into one of the most chilling crimes in modern history. If you found this story haunting, share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Dark Butterfly for more true crime mysteries, unsolved cases, and chilling stories from the shadows. Stay safe, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next video.